Following her interview with 60 Minutes, Marjorie Taylor Greene has released more information about what transpired between her and Donald Trump prior to her decision to exit Congress. She had a recent interview with the New York Times, and it's giving more details. And folks, you got to see this. You got to get into this. I was just so naive inside Marjorie Taylor Greene's break with Donald Trump. Let's go ahead and get into this interview here. I'm just going to make this larger for everybody so you can read along with me. 11 days after Charlie Kirk was killed in September, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the third-term Georgia Congresswoman, was watching his memorial service on TV as the luminaries of the conservative movement and Trump administration gathered to pay tribute to the young activist. What stayed with Greene long afterward were the last two speakers who took the stage. First was Kirk's widow, Erica, who stood in white before the crowd filling the Arizona stadium, lifted her tear-filled eyes, and said that she forgave her husband's killer. And then there was President Trump. He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose, he said of Kirk. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them. Now, we talked about that before also on the show. This is what Marjorie Taylor Greene said. That was absolutely the worst statement, Greene wrote to me in a text message months after the memorial service. And the contrast between Erica Kirk and the president was clarifying. She added, it just shows where his heart is. And that's the difference with her having a sincere Christian faith and proves that he does not have any faith. Now, I would go on to add here, we have talked about Erica Kirk as well on the show. I don't think Erica's really being sincere at all. We've gone through all of that. But Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to think that at least what she said there that day was sincere. I think MTG is giving Erica too much credit, to be honest with you. I don't trust Erica. I told you this days ago. I still don't. She comes across as very shady to me. Especially when we talked about her background. She has not been honest about her prior relationship before Charlie Kirk. She's just told a lot of lies. So we've gone through all of that. But to get to the point that she said here about Donald Trump, I thought it was just the Epstein controversy that started this rift for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump. But now in this interview, she apparently also took issue with the statement that he made at Charlie Kirk's memorial. And let's continue on here so you can see what else she said. I think this is really important. It also, Greene said, clarified something about herself. Over the past 5 years as Trump's most notorious acolyte in Congress, she had adopted his unrepentant pugilism as her own. Our side has been trained by Donald Trump to never apologize and to never admit when you're wrong. You just keep pummeling your enemies no matter what. And as a Christian, I don't believe in doing that. I agree with Erica Kirk, who did the hardest thing possible and said it out loud. That statement there from Donald Trump, as I told you before, comes from Roy Cohen. Roy Cohen, who I would describe as a possible mentor to Donald Trump, had that same type of philosophy. Don't apologize for anything. Just continue to call out your enemies and just say whatever you think is going to help that effort and to get the audience, the viewers, the people, the supporters to continue to side with you. And that's exactly what Donald Trump does. And now you hear Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's saying that he relayed that same message to them. This is a dangerous type of mindset. If you cannot admit that you were wrong, if you cannot apologize for anything, I'm looking at that as, I don't know, borderline narcissism. It seems like to me like that's narcissistic behavior, where it's everybody else is the problem. You have done nothing wrong. Greene's reaction put her in a distant minority among influential conservative figures. Almost immediately after Kirk was declared dead, many of her comrades on the right, the billionaire Elon Musk, the Fox News host Jesse Waters, the podcaster Steve Bannon, labeled the killing an act of war by the left and exhorted their audience to think in similar terms. But Greene, who for years took a backseat to no one when it came to reactionary rhetoric, going so far before she was in office to accuse Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, of treasonous conduct and adding that treason was punishable by imprisonment or death, realized that she had suddenly lost all appetite for vengeance. She later told a friend who confirmed the exchange, "After Charlie died, I realized that I am part of this toxic culture. I really started looking at my faith. I wanted to be more like Christ." So what this tells me is that apparently it got to a point, and that was the moment for her where things had just gone too far. Kudos to her for being able to admit that. And also notice she has no problem admitting that she was in the wrong. And that's where the difference is between her and Donald Trump. She voted along with him, I would say 99% of the time. But she's willing to admit, you know what? This isn't right. I was wrong. This is not the right way. Now, you know what happens when you start to do that and you're a part of this said, movement, you are seen as a problem. They don't want you to be a part of the movement. They want you out. They want you gone. And that's what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Uh-oh, you're criticizing Donald Trump. You got to go. We don't care about what you did in the past. We don't care about how many times you voted along with Donald Trump. You did the big no-no. So we don't want to associate with you anymore. That was when the stress fracture that had been steadily widening between Greene and her political godfather became an irrevocable break. She had increasingly taken stands apart from the president and the Republican Party, declaring the war in Gaza a genocide, objecting to cryptocurrency and AI policies that, from her perspective, prioritize billionaire donors over working class Americans, criticizing the Trump administration for approving foreign student visas, for enacting tariffs that hurt businesses in her district, and for allowing Obamacare subsidies to expire. Most significant, she defied the president and complaint House Republican leaders as she argued that all investigative material pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein should be released. The Epstein files represent everything wrong with Washington, she said. Rich, powerful elites doing horrible things and getting away with it, and women are the victims. Let's go on a little bit more here. As Greene made her opinions known, first to Trump and to his team, then publicly, she tested the affection of the man who once said of her in a posted statement endorsing her reelection, "Marjorie Taylor Greene is a warrior in Congress. She doesn't back down. She doesn't give up. And she has always been with Trump." She was one of the most vocal supporters of Donald Trump. And that's why I said her break away from him was very telling that things have changed. And yeah, we've seen podcasters have this split with Donald Trump, and we've seen podcasters call him out. But this was a politician that supported him to the T that started to break away. I think what this showed me is that sometimes when we think the people who are less likely to be moved can possibly be moved on said issue. And for Marjorie Taylor Greene, I would have never expected that she would be one of those people. So sometimes you just never know. Let's continue on here. Now, the cascade of perceived transgressions culminated in the president's tarring her as Marjorie Traitor Greene in a social media post on November 15. 6 days later, she announced in a video that she would resign from Congress on January 5th, a year before her term ends. In early December, as she prepared to make her exit, I met Greene for the first of 2 long interviews in which she was remarkably forthcoming about her frustrations with the president and his anger with her. So we're going to get into the Epstein part here. Greene had other reservations about the administration's agenda While she initially supported Donald Trump's tariff, she became fretful when carpet and flooring companies in her district said they were now less able to procure certain chemicals that were available only overseas. Remember, I warned everybody about that? You guys remember? Okay. She complained that the hundreds of thousands of college student visas being issued by the administration to Chinese nationals gave them an unfair leg up on American students. And though Trump campaigned on ending transgender medical care for children, as president, she says he offered little support to Greene's bill, the Protect Children Innocence Act, which would do exactly that. Only when Greene threatened to oppose the continuing resolution in September to fund the government did the House Majority Leader Steve Scalise promise to bring her bill to the House floor in exchange for a vote. So she basically used some type of leverage there, right? Something that the Democrats are not willing to do for whatever reason. We've gone through that before. Such acts of obstinance probably got under Trump's skin, Greene told me, but she then said it was Epstein. Epstein was everything. Listen to this. Trump indicated a willingness to release all the files pertaining to his former friend Epstein, who died in prison in 2019 while awaiting trial. Goes on to say here, the reason for her lack of concern. So this is a good question that the interviewer did ask her, why weren't you concerned about the Epstein files and the Epstein victims during Trump's first term? She explains that here. She said to me, might seem improbable to anyone who is unfamiliar with how the mainstream press and the right-wing media cover the same story differently or not at all. The story to me was that I'd seen pictures of Epstein with all these people, and Trump is just one of several. And then for me, I'd seen Bill Clinton is on the flight logs for his plane like 20-something times. So for people like me, it wasn't suspicious. And then we heard about the general stories of how Epstein used to be a member of Mar-a-Lago, but Trump kicked him out. Why would I think he did anything wrong, right? So this is the problem with corporate media and, of course, partisan politics. You have Fox News, which caters to the right. You have CNN and MS Now, apparently they are, that caters to what they consider to be the left. I don't consider the Democratic Party left, but they cater to that side. If those networks weren't partisan, because they are, then maybe people could feel a little bit differently. Now, the people still belong to their respective parties, and a lot of times people are party loyalists and they're going to back them and defend them no matter what. But it doesn't help when corporate media is also doing the same thing. So if Fox News wasn't partisan, and if CNN and MS Now were not partisan, maybe people would feel a little bit differently. But when you have corporate media egging it along and just confirming that your right to defend your party, most people are not going to look elsewhere. And I've been seeing that for years. Everyone doesn't watch independent media. In fact, a lot of the older voters, the numbers show that they don't. But I see more people moving over towards the independent media space. And, okay, I'm going to start listening to something else now. But if you only watch Fox News, if you only watch CNN and MS Now, that's all you know. And to go along with that, she was a part of the MAGA movement and she's a politician. So there's that. Now, when people say, well, Sabs, well, then what does that mean about members of the squad? Well, with the squad, it was different because I was first introduced to members of what would be the squad through independent media. I saw AOC on independent media. I saw Cori Bush on independent media. Ayanna Pressley, I already knew about because I live here and she was already representing Boston in city council before she ran for Congress. But that's the big difference. It was independent media that I saw that was promoting the squad and Bernie Sanders at that point in time. So I think this is where corporate media has a responsibility and they're not doing that responsibility. but at least she's willing to admit she was wrong. And I think that's what really stands out to me here. It's like people are like, well, she went along with this for so long. And I get it. I totally get it. But at least she's willing to admit she's wrong. And of course, maybe she does have political aspirations somewhere down the road. I don't know. But I would also say going against Donald Trump, and if you do have political aspirations elsewhere, I'm not sure that would help you at this point in time. Not if you're a part of the Republican Party. Goes on to say here, for Greene, the decades that Epstein spent eluding justice for exploiting and sexually assaulting countless girls and young women while amassing a fortune, and the seeming efforts by the government to cover up the injustice represents everything wrong with Washington. This September, Greene spoke with several of Epstein's victims for the first time in a closed-door House Oversight Committee meeting. She knew that the women had paid their own way to come to Washington. She saw some of them trembling and crying as they spoke. Their accounts struck her as entirely believable. Greene herself had never been sexually abused, but she knew women who had. In her own small way, Greene later told me she could understand what it was like for a woman to stand up to a powerful man. It says here, am I going to get murdered or one of my kids because he's calling me a traitor? We'll go on a little bit more here as well. And this is where I shake my head at someone like Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace made it very well known that she had been a victim of sexual assault. And she basically used that as her reasoning to be against the transgender bathrooms. Now, whatever people's belief on that, it is what it is. We have here in Massachusetts and the Boston area, there's a number of businesses that have all gender restrooms and their individual like stalls and all this kind of stuff. But I know some people don't feel comfortable with that because they have been victims of sexual abuse. So I understand that as well. But for someone like Nancy Mace, who spoke about what she went through and was able to use that to play into the culture war, it's very telling and very interesting to me that Nancy Mace did not join along MTG, Thomas Massey, and Ro Khanna to release these Epstein files. So that right there told me everything I needed to know about Nancy Mace, that she was just willing to tote the party line, and all these, the vocalness that she had about what happened to her and protecting women, all of a sudden, she wasn't willing to be vocal anymore because it could implicate people in her own party. And people need to pay attention to things like that. Let's get into what else Donald Trump told her, because everything wasn't revealed in that 60 minutes interview. So after the hearing, Greene held a news conference at which she threatened to identify some of the men who had abused some of the women. Trump called Greene to voice his displeasure. Greene was in her Capitol Hill office, and according to a staff member, everyone in the suite of rooms could hear him yelling at her as she listened to him on the speakerphone. So Greene goes on to say here, Trump replied, "My friends will get hurt." Let me highlight this here. According to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Trump replied, "My friends will get hurt." That's the significant thing here. In the 60 Minutes interview, Marjorie Taylor Greene said that Donald Trump told her people will get hurt. But now in this interview, which apparently was long, according to the journalist, now it's coming out. And now she is saying that he said his friends would get hurt. And now some people may say, well, do you believe her or Trump? Or, oh, I don't believe Marjorie Taylor Greene. Looking at the photos, I believe her. Because those are his friends. Those are his buddies. So Donald Trump, as I said before, wants to protect his friends and also himself. Forget those women. Don't worry about the women. My friends might get hurt. Let's go on a little bit more here. When she urged Trump to invite some of Epstein's female victims to the Oval Office, she says he angrily informed her that they had nothing to merit the honor. This is damning. So do you see the way that Donald Trump talked about the Epstein victims, the women? They had done nothing to merit the honor. But all the guys who participated in abusing these underage girls did have something to merit the honor, because Trump had no problem hanging around them, but he couldn't meet with them. I told you guys like more was going to come out about this. It's all coming out. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, on her way out, she's going out swinging. It would be the last conversation Greene and Trump would ever have. Rather than back down, Greene did something she had never done before as a congresswoman. She teamed up with a Democrat, Ro Khanna, as well as Republican Thomas Massie. So what does that tell you, guys? What does that tell you? My friends would get hurt. What does that tell you? So Donald Trump trying to protect his friends. If you haven't had the chance to do so, read this article. It's rather long. So check it out when you get a chance to do so. And one more part here. Greene told me that she began to worry that her beloved MAGA movement was going off the rails. Its leading figures were no longer preoccupied with pressing economic needs for her constituents. Instead, they were bickering over the Epstein files. How did all of this end up to a point where it was about releasing the files about women who were sexually assaulted and not the serious things that I think truly matter about helping to get our economy stabilized again, help reduce the cost of living, fix the housing market, fix health insurance? For the love of God, what the expletive is the matter with these people? It's called behavior. It's called behavior. This is one of the problems with political parties. This is something that the founding fathers, by the way, did not want. They did not want political parties because of something like this possibly happening, where people would back the party no matter what, instead of the policies that they supposedly support. And this is what you have here. For all these years, we've heard about the Republican Party saying that they're this party of family values, and Donald Trump is a part of that party, but he tells you apparently that he didn't want to talk to those women because they did nothing of merit. And that's the smoking gun, ladies and gentlemen. So for people who were wondering if, they're not sure how they feel about Trump in this Epstein situation, whether you believe he did something to these women or not, one thing I think you need to pay attention to is the fact that he told Marjorie Taylor Greene he did not want to talk to those women because they did nothing of merit. Now, people can't be surprised, and I say this is the reason why. If you can just shrug your shoulders and send weapons to Israel repeatedly, watching them kill all these kids, and you can just shrug your shoulders and say, whatever, I'm just going to let Israel do whatever they want. Why would he give a damn about these women? Trump cares about Trump and only Trump. And for the people who thinks that he cares about them, he doesn't. He just wants you to bow to him and be loyal to him. And the moment that you choose not to do that, you're a traitor, just like he said Marjorie Taylor Greene is. So people ask me, do I believe this? What do I believe? I'll be honest with you. I believe her. I believe Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she's telling the truth here. I think she's telling the truth. And the party may not like it. Some of the voters may not like what she's doing, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, at least she can sit back and say, I admitted when I was wrong. I admitted I was wrong. And Donald Trump will never do that. I wonder if there's going to be more to come. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.